You're sitting there in the darkness. The only light comes from that screen in front of you. Your heart is still racing, but inside you feel absolutely nothing. The rush lasted maybe 10 seconds, but the weight of what just happened is going to follow you around for the rest of the day, maybe longer. You made a promise to yourself that this wouldn't happen again. You looked yourself in the mirror yesterday and said it was over. But here you are, staring up at the ceiling, feeling completely drained, wondering why you can't seem to get control over something that's stealing your energy, your motivation, and your self-respect one day at a time. This isn't just a bad habit you picked up somewhere along the way. This is something that's been wired into your brain through repetition, and it's running on autopilot now. You're not weak. You're not broken. You re-caught in a biological trap that was never designed to handle what modern technology is throwing at you. And today we're going to dismantle that trap piece by piece. I'm not here to shame you or lecture you about morality. I am here to show you exactly what is happening inside your brain and give you practical tools to break free from this cycle permanently. Here's what you need to understand first. What you're experiencing right now isn't natural desire the way your grandfather experienced it. Something fundamental has changed. Back in the 1950s, there was a scientist studying animal behavior who made a discovery that explains exactly what is happening to you. His name was Nicholas Tinbergen, and he was working with fish called sticklebacks. The male fish had this instinct to attack other males who had bright red bellies. It was survival programming, protect the territory, fight off rivals, basic biology. But Tinbergen did something interesting. He built fake fish out of wood. Some of these wooden models didn't even look like real fish. They were just crude shapes. But he painted enormous, exaggerated red sections on them, brighter than anything that existed in nature. When he dropped these fake fish into the tank, something strange happened. The real fish didn't just attack them. They went absolutely wild. They ignored the actual rival fish swimming right next to them and focused all their aggression on these fake wooden models. They exhausted themselves attacking something that wasn't even real. He ran similar experiments with butterflies. Built cardboard cutouts with wings that were bigger and brighter than any real butterfly. And the male butterflies did the same thing. They completely ignored real females they could actually mate with and tried desperately to mate with these cardboard fakes. They literally chose artificial stimulation over real reproduction until they died without passing on their genes. Tinbergen called this phenomenon supernormal stimulus, an artificial trigger so exaggerated that it completely hijacks natural instinct. Now look at what you've been exposing yourself to. High-definition video, professional lighting, surgically enhanced bodies, editing and angles that don't exist in real life. Infinite variety at your fingertips. This is your wooden fish. This is your cardboard butterfly. Your brain wasn't designed to process this level of artificial intensity. The neural pathways that evolved over thousands of years to respond to real human connection are being overwhelmed by something that is engineered specifically to trigger maximum response. When you engage with this content, your brain releases dopamine. That's the chemical of anticipation and pursuit. Your nervous system thinks you've just accomplished something significant. Your ancient biology is screaming that you've hit the reproductive jackpot. Unlimited access, no competition, no risk of rejection. But then comes the crash, because your brain eventually realizes none of it was real. There's no actual connection. No intimacy, no bond. Just you, alone, with a screen, and a devastating neurochemical collapse that leaves you feeling worse than before you started. This is called the Coolidge effect, and it's been weaponized against you. Your biology was designed to seek variety to spread your genes across a wider population. That made sense 10,000 years ago. But now that drive has been exploited to turn you into a consumer of images that don't lead to anything real. And here's the critical part. You cannot fight this with willpower alone. Willpower is a limited resource. It gets depleted throughout the day. If you're relying on pure self-control, you're going to lose that battle at 11 o'clock at night when you're re-exhausted and your defenses are down. What you need instead is a complete psychological reframe. You need to change how your brain perceives this entire situation. So let me give you the specific techniques that actually work. The first technique comes from ancient philosophy. The Stoics and early Buddhist practitioners understood something that modern neuroscience is only now confirming. Desire survives on illusion. When you look at these images, you're not seeing reality. You're seeing a carefully constructed fantasy designed to trigger specific responses. Your brain fills in the gaps with imagination and projects meaning that isn't actually there. To break this spell, you need to practice cognitive deconstruction. Marcus Aurelius was the emperor of Rome, the most powerful man in the world. He could have had anything he wanted, but in his private journals, he wrote about how he deliberately stripped away the romantic illusions around objects of desire. He looked at expensive wine and reminded himself it was just fermented grape juice. He looked at luxurious purple robes and saw sheep's wool dyed with shellfish blood. He did this to remove the inflated value his mind was placing on material things. You need to do the same thing with the images that trigger you. When you feel that pull, when your heart starts racing and your brain starts spinning up that familiar fantasy, stop. Don't fight the urge with brute force. Instead, mentally deconstruct what you're looking at. Strip away the lighting, the makeup, the editing, the performance. See it for what it actually is. Skin stretched over bone, muscle, and tissue. Biological processes, mortality. This isn't about being cold or clinical. It's about seeing through the artificial glamour to the reality underneath. Practice this every single time you encounter a trigger. When you're walking down the street and you see someone attractive, instantly trigger the mental breakdown. Not in a judgmental way, but in a factual way. Skeleton, organs, eventual decay. It sounds harsh, but it works because it interrupts the fantasy loop before it can gain momentum. The pull you feel isn't toward a real person or real connection. It's toward an illusion your brain has constructed. When you see through the illusion, the power drains away. The second technique is about language and identity. Most men make a critical mistake. They identify with the urge. They think, I want this, or I need release. Notice that word. You're claiming ownership of a sensation that's actually just your brain running old programming. This is a trap. You are not your urges. You are not your impulses. Your brain is a biological machine that has been conditioned through repetition to fire specific neural patterns when certain triggers appear. If you've spent years reaching for your phone every time you feel stressed or lonely or bored, your brain has physically built a highway between those emotions and that behavior. When stress appears, the signal automatically shoots down that highway. That's the craving, but it's not you. It's a mechanical response based on past conditioning. So you need to change your internal dialogue. Stop saying, I want to look at this. Start saying, my brain is generating a familiar signal right now. Create distance between your conscious self and the automatic impulse. Think of it like a phone ringing. When you get a spam call, you don't pick up the phone and start arguing with the scammer. You don't feel bad about ignoring it. You just look at the caller ID, recognize it for what it is, and let it ring. The urge is the same thing, it's just a signal. You don't have to answer it. You can observe it without acting on it. This creates a gap between stimulus and response. In that gap, you have freedom. You become the observer instead of the participant, and the observer cannot be controlled by what they're watching. Next time the craving hits, try this. Sit down. Close your eyes. Visualize the urge as a wave or a cloud passing through your body. Don't push against it. That actually makes it stronger. Just watch it. Say to yourself, this is a physiological event. It's not a command. It will rise, it will peak, and then it will pass. And here's what most people don't realize. That wave doesn't last nearly as long as it feels like it's going to last. The third technique is what I call the delay protocol. Scientific research shows that most intense cravings peak and then start to subside within 10 to 15 minutes. That's it. But when you're in the middle of it, it feels like it's going to last forever. It feels like if you don't give in right now, you'll explode. That's your amygdala talking. The amygdala is the emotional center of your brain, and it has no concept of time. It only knows right now. It screams emergency at you even when there's no actual emergency. So here's the rule. You don't have to resist forever. You just have to delay for 10 minutes. When the urge strikes, set a timer on your phone. Tell yourself you can revisit this decision when the timer goes off. But during those 10 minutes, you cannot just sit there white-knuckling through it. You need to engage your brain in something that requires active focus. Do push-ups, read something challenging, work on a problem, call someone. The key is cognitive load. Your brain has limited processing capacity. You cannot simultaneously focus intensely on a complex task and maintain high-level arousal. The neural resources get reallocated, the blood flow shifts. By the time that timer goes off, something interesting will have happened. The overwhelming need will have downgraded to a mild want. A few minutes after that, even the want starts fading. The chemical storm has passed. You've surfed the wave instead of drowning in it. And every single time you successfully delay, you're physically rewiring your brain. You're weakening the automatic pathway and strengthening your capacity for self-control. The fourth technique is about energy redirection. This is absolutely critical because suppression alone doesn't work long-term. If you just try to bottle up this energy and push it down, it builds pressure. Eventually, it explodes, either as irritability, anxiety, or a massive relapse. Energy cannot be destroyed. It can only be transformed. This is basic physics, and it applies to your sex drive as well. Napoleon Hill wrote about this in Think and Grow Rich. He studied the most successful men in history and found a common thread. They were highly driven men with strong sexual energy, but they didn't waste it. They channeled it into their work. Nikola Tesla remained celibate and claimed that his sexual energy was the fuel for his incredible mental clarity and visualization abilities. Mike Tyson, in his absolute prime, went years without release because he said the buildup made him ferocious in the ring. What you're feeling when that energy builds up isn't just horniness. It's raw creative force. It's life energy. Right now, you're taking a fire hose operating at full pressure and spraying it into the gutter. You need to redirect that hose toward building something that matters. When you feel that surge of energy rising, don't reach for your phone. Create something instead. Work on your project. Go train. Fix something that's broken. Write. Build. The goal is to create a new association in your brain. Instead of arousal equals screen time, you want arousal equals productive action. This is Pavlovian conditioning working in your favor instead of against you. You're training your brain to pair sexual energy with creative output. Tell yourself, I'm not reproducing biologically today. I'm reproducing through my work. I'm building a legacy. The restless energy you feel when you don't release isn't torture. It's fuel. It's your battery charging. Most men are walking around at 5% power because they're constantly draining themselves. They're foggy, lethargic, passive. Keep the charge. Let it build until you feel like you're vibrating with energy. And then unleash it on your goals, not into a tissue. The fifth technique is about environmental control. The battle doesn't start when you're alone with a device late at night. It starts hours earlier with what you allow your eyes to consume throughout the day. Every lingering glance at a provocative image, every second look at someone attractive, every click on borderline content is priming your brain. You're loading the gun all day and then wondering why it goes off later. There's a simple rule that changes everything. I call it the 2-second rule. The first glance is automatic. Your eyes notice attractive features. That's biology and it's not your fault. But the second glance is a choice. That's where you draw the line. When your eyes land on something triggering, you have exactly 2 seconds to bounce your gaze away. The first second is the accidental exposure. The second second is the decision point. If you let your eyes linger, if you let them trace curves or start building a fantasy, you've already lost. The actual physical act later is just a formality at that point because the dopamine spike has already happened in your brain. Train your eyes to physically bounce off triggers like you would look away from the sun. You don't stare at the sun because it damages your vision. You need the same automatic response to protect your mental state. This isn't repression. This is protection. You're guarding what enters your mind. Every image you let sit in your consciousness is a seed. You might not water it today, but it's there, waiting for a moment of weakness. Clean up your digital environment too. Unfollow accounts that post provocative content. Train your algorithm by consistently clicking "not interested" on anything triggering. Stop testing your willpower against avoidable temptation. A recovering alcoholic doesn't keep bottles of liquor on his nightstand. Why would you keep triggers in your feed? Make your environment work for you instead of against you. Every time you bounce your eyes away from a trigger, you're doing a rep of mental discipline. You're training your brain that we don't consume this anymore. Eventually, the triggers lose their magnetic pull. You see them, but you don't feel them. The sixth technique is probably the hardest, but also the most powerful. It's about identity shift. Right now, part of how you see yourself is as someone who struggles with this. Someone who's trying to quit. Someone fighting an ongoing battle. As long as that's your identity, you'll keep acting in accordance with it. Human beings always behave consistently with who they believe they are. If you believe you're a smoker trying to quit, you'll eventually smoke. If you believe you're a non-smoker, cigarettes are just irrelevant to you. You need to kill the old version of yourself. Not metaphorically, actually do it. Tonight, write down a description of the person you've been. The one who wastes hours in front of a screen. The one who feels ashamed and powerless. The one who keeps breaking promises to himself. Write it all down. Read it. Feel the disgust and the pity for that person. Then destroy the paper. Burn it if you can do it safely. Tear it into pieces and throw it away. Make it a ritual. You're marking a definitive end. Then consciously step into a new identity. You're not trying to quit anymore. You simply don't do this. It's not something you do, just like you don't eat food out of the garbage. It's not a struggle or a temptation. It's just beneath who you are. When an urge appears, you don't panic or feel tested. You just observe it and think, that's what the old version would have done. But he doesn't exist anymore. You're someone who creates instead of consumes. Someone who has control over his own mind and body. Wear that identity until it becomes who you actually are. The seventh technique is about perspective. Lust thrives in the illusion of infinite time. It whispers that you can always start fresh tomorrow. That one more time won't really matter. The antidote to that lie is remembering death. Every single second that passes is gone forever. You will never get it back. When you truly internalize that your time here is limited and completely uncertain, the idea of spending 30 minutes staring at pixels becomes not just wrong, but insane. It's literally stealing from your own life. Every morning before you touch your phone, look at yourself in the mirror. Look directly into your own eyes and say out loud, I'm going to die. It might be today. It might be in 40 years. But the clock is ticking right now. Ask yourself if this is really how you want to spend the limited time you have. Will you waste your last day on Earth hiding in a dark room feeling ashamed? Death strips away all the illusions and reveals what actually matters. Keep a physical reminder with you. A coin in your pocket, a phrase written down, something you can touch when the urge hits. Let it remind you that you don't have time for this. You have things to build, people who need you. A legacy to create. The temporary pleasure isn't worth the permanent cost. Now let me tell you what happens when you actually implement these techniques consistently. You won't become perfect. You'll still face urges, but you'll have control. And that changes absolutely everything. Your mental clarity sharpens dramatically. When you're not constantly draining your energy through this cycle, you have so much more capacity for focus. Your anxiety drops because you've removed a massive source of background shame and secrecy. Your presence improves because you're not always managing urges or dealing with aftermath. Most importantly, you start respecting yourself again. When you look in the mirror, you see someone who keeps promises to himself, someone who has discipline, someone who isn't controlled by impulses. That self-respect radiates outward into every area of your life. How you show up at work, how you interact with people, how you pursue your goals. Everything elevates when you're not leaking vital energy into a habit that returns nothing. The war doesn't end completely. Be realistic about that. Urges will still show up. You'll still have weak moments. but you get better at fighting. The techniques become automatic. The delays get easier. The identity gets stronger. The space between urges grows longer. What used to be a daily struggle becomes weekly, then monthly, then occasional. And when it does appear, you know exactly what to do. You've got the tools. You've got the understanding. You've got the new identity. The next urge is coming. Maybe later today. Maybe it's already there right now as you're hearing these words. You have a choice in front of you. You can keep doing what you've always done and keep getting the same results. Or you can try something different. You can implement even one of these techniques and see what happens. You can start taking back control right now. This isn't about becoming someone completely different. It's about becoming who you actually are underneath all the conditioning and the patterns and the cycles. That person is still in there. They've just been buried under years of repetition. Every time you choose differently, you bring them closer to the surface. Every time you observe an urge without acting on it, you're clearing away another layer. Every time you redirect that energy into something meaningful, you're building the life that person would actually live. You don't need perfect circumstances to start. You don't need to wait for Monday or next month. You can decide right now that the old pattern ends here, that you're finished being controlled by a hijacked biological response, that you're ready to reclaim the energy and focus and self-respect that has been draining away one pixel at a time. The choice has always been yours. The only question is what you're going to do with it.